And then out of greed, you have a want. It's still intellectual. If it's there, fine. If it's not, that's okay. You spend some more time. You create history. History creates identity and value. Now it turns into need. If you're lucky and you have the resources, now remember, just because you have need for something, it doesn't mean you're going to have it. You need resources. And resources mean savings. It needs patience. It needs cleverness and cunningness. You need resources. Just because you want to make chicken tikka masala, you need to know the recipe. You need to have the ingredients. You need to have paid PG&E. Now, then you obtain. Now you have it. And what happens when you have it? You begin to get consumed by the world of the need, whatever that you found yourself attracted to. So if I was to say this in a relatively crude way, when you find yourself attracted to some human being out there, one of the ways your needs are satisfied is physical intimacy. You have sex with them. Not once a day, 50 times a day. Okay? There comes a point where your obsession for the object of attraction lessens. Okay? So as the intensity of your need diminishes, you become less interested. And when you are less interested, there are hints of dissatisfaction. And once you're dissatisfied, now you have hints of frustration. This leads into doubt. Why did I pursue this in the first place? Okay? And then eventually what happens, long story short, you become indifferent. Whatever feelings, emotions you had here, its presence or absence, it no longer matters to you. This is our life. If this is a little too abstract, when you were born, you had this need to be nursed by your mom. When you were 3, you had this need, and you cried and you screamed. And eventually, she nursed you and you shut your mouth. At the age of 3, you screamed and shouted for a bike. Eventually, your poor father saved some money and bought you a bike. And now it's just collecting dust and getting rusty. Okay? And then you wanted, a video game. And then after a while, you got bored. Then you wanted a girlfriend. After a while, that got bored. Then you want to go to school and you got some degrees. That got bored. You read a few books. That got boring. And that is the foundation of human life. You're moved by desire. If you're unfortunate, you will attain what you desired. If you're very unfortunate, you will suck the life out of what you have now obtained. And now it becomes lifeless, sitting in your life, and you will do whatever you can to get rid of it. That is the story of Sisyphus. He knows exactly what's going to happen. You don't like me? Fine. How about your boss? How about some of the friends? How about when you go to the cities, the streets and walk around town, and you see all the horror show around you? It never ends. And then something strange happens. And I'm not sure if it's in the story, but if you know how everything is going to be, your desire to live longer, that desire begins to become less interesting, less desirable. You will, in fact, pray for death, a quick, healthy death, because you know the outcome of everything. The moment something is born, you see its coffin sitting right next to it. It's a devastating philosophy of life. But we are told that Sisyphus is happy. But he has no choice but to be happy, because what can you do? And the only way you can be happy is by not paying attention. As long as you don't pay attention, you're happy. And that makes you a fool, but that's okay.
It seems to me almost like Sisyphus is Atlas, the burden, sort of like the burdens of our life. Is Sisyphus Atlas in a sense?
You make a good point that if Sisyphus has become aware, and if the awareness is something that is somewhat tragic, you understand things really, really well, but there isn't much you can do about it to remedy it, it begins to become very, very burdensome, yes. And I suppose the next question would be, is it good to become aware? You know, if you have a 5-year-old and he comes to you and says, "Mom, what's sex?" I doubt very much you're going to say, "Honesty is the best policy," unless you're just one of those ridiculous hippies. You sit them down and say, "I don't really know." And if you're really conservative, you pour some salt water in their mouth to baptize their tongue and hopefully their mind. But nevertheless, you'll create some fantastic story because you're a creative mom or dad. And you do so because you know that though they are asking a very, very important and a very healthy question, they don't have the capacity to receive the answer. It may be too much for them. And you don't want to create a Garden of Eden scenario, which is you're going to expose your children who are not ready to certain things that may excite them, because children by nature are curious. And out of that curiosity, they're going to move towards the things that generated the curiosity. Experiment with sex at the age of 6 or 7, not knowing that their body is far too young psychologically wise. They don't have the capacity to understand the situation, process the situation, and then they're going to be burdened for many, many years to come because they had an experience that was far too early in their life. So you don't want to create that Garden of Eden scenario. And then the question becomes, what should we expose people to? Do I really want to make you aware of some things for which you're not ready? Let's say you raise your hand and you say, "I have a boyfriend or I have a companion and I love him." Can we talk about love a little bit? A very stupid instructor would say, "Well, yes. Let me talk about all these different branches of love, from the most superficial, profane, to the most profound." And at a certain point, you begin to reflect on your relationship, and then you're going to connect your relationship to one of these stages. And then, God forbid, if you come to realize your relationship lives in the station of profanity, that it's superficial, it's cheap, it's hollow, it doesn't have much value. What are you going to do when you go home? I mean, you're no longer 18, you're not even 20, you're not even 30, you're not even 40. Where are you going to go to find a companion at your age, being busy that you are? What, because some stupid abstract philosophy that some guy 5,000 years created? Why should you be exposed to such a philosophy? Especially if you don't know how to process it well. And all of a sudden you realize you become aware, but that awareness paralyzes you. And then you get depressed. And that's probably the function of all kinds of awareness. It doesn't really matter. Awareness have a tendency of making you profoundly passive, sometimes sad, sorrowful, and depressed. I'm sorry. Josh?
And forgive my crude pop culture reference, but this reminds me of Groundhog Day. And
Yes.
Groundhog Day is just a retelling. Except that in Groundhog Day, I think there's an awareness of death that comes with this. He's stuck repeating this, and ultimately he will die, and he has a choice about what he does with his time. And so he goes from being, this angry, horrible person to actually trying to help people, right? And it also makes me think of the Akira Kurosawa movie where it's very similar. Bureaucrat goes through life not doing anything, just being a bureaucrat and not actually affecting any change. Finds out he's dying and then actually has a positive effect. Isn't there is there value in that? Is that realistic? Is that just a fantasy made to make people feel hopeful?
Because of the complexity of just our organism, you're sitting at the table having food with your family, and your son, I don't know, he's having like cheeseburger, and it's sometimes salty, and it's stuck right here. And he doesn't need to tell it to you. You just get up, and you get some water, and you give it to him. You're moved by your passion and your care and your love. And then you give it to him. He doesn't look at you, and he doesn't say thank you. And then you say, thank you, Mo. He says, oh, Dad, thank you, Dad. And so you live in these two different worlds. You do something because you care. But there's also this other part of you that kicks in and says, can you at least be decent enough, mindful enough to just give me a thank you? You don't even have to mean it. Just pretend. And so, because oftentimes the saying, which is very true, that no good deed goes unpunished, right? After a while, you are charitable with your time, with your money, with your energy, with people, and it goes unnoticed. There comes a time you say, well, if you want my time, I need a thank you. I'm not going to give it to you freely. Now, if you can always leave this other part of you that expects. Now, I know there are all these philosophies out there that say, you should just do things without expectation. Is this a joke? We don't function that way. You need to have some respect for how our organism works. You can't just give and give and give and give, isn't it? It's kind of like, who was that guy, the vice president? Dick Cheney, Robert Cheney, who said that when we go to Iraq, they're going to throw us flowers because we are their liberators. I mean, are you really that stupid? You're going to go into a country, destroy their museum, give their oil away, break down the doors, have the 18-year-old disrespect the 70-year-old, and expect what exactly? So the idea of you walking into environments and expecting nothing is really quite ridiculous. If you're a human being, you move through life expecting things. You don't raise your hand in expectation of being rejected. You raise your hand, you ask a question in hopes of someone out there coming up with a relatively decent answer to your question. Now, it may work for you, it may not work for you, but that is what you expect. I'm not sure if people can remove themselves from this part that expects. If the story of God is true, God has commandments. He expects you to follow them. If you don't, He will send you to hell. And the truth is, anyone who is good at anything, even if bringing a glass of water to their companion, they desire a thank you in the end. Now, if you have the power to remove that part of you and just do it without expecting anything, fine. Mother Teresa was one of those people. We talked about her. Near the end of her life, she began to curse at God. She says, I've spent all of my life helping people. What do I get in return? Nothing. So, yeah. Yeah, Jalua.
How do you create a healthy relationship with your expectations?
It depends what you expect. Let me give you a scenario. Can I? Imagine I'm a chain smoker. And tobacco. The stuff that kills you slowly and destroys every part of your body. And I wake up one morning and I say, I want to quit. It's a great thing. And I expect myself having the willpower to quit. And I create a narrative. In 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 2 months' time, I will no longer look at tobacco, touch tobacco, any of that stuff. Do I much know about my psychological addiction, which is after every meal, I'm going to light up a cigarette? When I look at all of my contacts, I realize about 95% of my friends are also smokers. I also come to realize my wife smokes as well. My father smokes as well. So every time I want to move away from that world, even for an hour, the moment my wife comes in, the first thing she does, she lights up. Now, I have a tornado or a tsunami coming my way. My expectation of myself is I want to quit smoking. But I have a world forcing itself onto me. And every time I open my eyes and look into this world, I saw people smoking. I want to resist, but I realize I can't. My wife keeps telling me, come on, honey, let's go on the sofa, or on the porch, sit, smoke, and have a conversation. Let's invite your parents. Let's have a party today. And I'm not Jesus Christ, who walks into the desert, has Satan tempt him, and say, no, Satan, you suck. I know better. I've been a chain smoker for 20 years. Just because I have this infantile desire about me, it doesn't mean I can go very far. And the point I'm trying to make is I expect myself to quit. But first, I have about 20 years of addiction. Second, I have an entire community of people, friends, family, who are also chain smokers. Now, there is a way I can have my expectations come true, which is if I have the willpower of Superman, for example, I don't know if he has any, that if I have people around me smoking, I can summon up the will and not smoke with them. I don't know who can, but probably there are some people out there who can. Most of us can't, because we are really our surrounding for the most part. And we want to be liked, so we conform. We do as other people tell us. The other way that you can do this, bring your expectations to life, is walk away from Laney and walk away from Oakland. Go somewhere where you don't know anyone. Go to a very, very conservative environment where people don't smoke. And I don't know if you can find those environments. Maybe you just need to live a solitary life for a while. you know. Yeah, and go there with a couple of, boxes of Winston or Marlboro. Just go there, smoke. There comes a point where you're out. But your travel time to the city to buy another box of tobacco, it's about 5 hours. And eventually, your body will adjust not to be around cigarettes. This is a self-help culture. And you know what self-help is? It means you pay $20 to the buffet at the counter before you walk in. Self-help. Help yourself with anything. And the assumption is, if I read a book, and if I give that book to you, you can self-help yourself to the ideas of that book. And you can eat those ideas, you can chew those ideas, process those ideas, take what is nourishing for you and get rid of the rest. And that's putting too much value on a human being. No one is able to do that. If your expectations are reasonable, depending on how well you know yourself, I cannot smoke for 5 hours. Anything below 5, I will do my best not to. But when the 5th hour comes, you have a lighter and you have a cigarette in your hand. And that's a reasonable expectation. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense, like realistic or reasonable expectations. Do you think that relates to your expectations of other people in the same way? It seems harder to have realistic expectations for other people because you don't know them the way you know yourself.
When you say other people, the question is, who are these other people? Are you intimate with them? Not intimate physically. I'm talking, how close are they to you? Okay? And how many people do you have around you? See, if you have like 50 people around you, Jean-Paul Sartre has this, it's a great idea. I mean, it's just another one of those Westerners. He says, listen, if you're my wife, and I've been depending on you for the past like 20 years, if you die, I'll be devastated. If on the other hand, I have you, and then I have her, and her, and her, and him, just in case you die, well, I've invested about 20% of myself in our relationship, 20% with this guy, 10% with that girl, 20% with that girl, 5% with that girl, just in case you die. I have other parts of myself invested in other people. I'll be sad, but maybe for 2 days, and then I'll just move on. If on the other hand, you only have one friend, just you and me, it's going to be very, very difficult to overcome. Now, here's the thing. The more self-sufficient you are, the more creative you are, the more independent you are because you're creative, not because you're a jerk. Okay? The more you expect from yourself and the less from other people. And it takes a long time for you to become self-sufficient. So when you talk about expectation, some of our parents get to know really, really well that they want their kids to kind of just sit and do math for 5 hours. And they slowly realize that, kids, they have a body, and that body needs to move around and just destroy things. They do math for 20 minutes, and they destroy your house for 5 hours. And then they sit back, and they do like reading for 5 minutes, and then they go out, they destroy the neighbor's house for 20 hours. And so, and it also depends on how you moved into a relationship with another human being. Can I give you a very, very practical and very crude example? Imagine I'm 25 and I am walking to Pete's and there is a nice young woman sitting there. And she's like 25. and she's showing a lot of skin. And I'm a man, I'm a visual animal, and she has a pretty face. She say, wow, this is beautiful. Hi, how are you doing? Can I buy you a cup? We sit, we talk. I ask for her number, she gives it to me easily. And she takes my number down and she calls me 2 hours later. And she's making chicken tikka masala at her house. And then we have sex. And then I stay the night. And I stay the following day and we have more sex. And then as we spend more time, I begin to like her and she begins to like me. What is the genesis, the foundation? How does this relationship happen? Body. And she likes to dress casually, show a lot of skin. I don't care. I like her. And then my mom calls and says, son, why don't you come over tonight? Mom, can I bring someone? Yes, who is it? Well, you know, I know that I've been dating this young woman. I love her. Oh, beautiful, son. I thought you were depressed. I am, but I love her. So I go home and now we're roommates, you know. I look at this girl and say, so listen, Jacques, Key, my mom has invited us to dinner. Let's go. Okay. So she goes to the room and she wears a mini skirt and a tank top. And she says, I'm ready. I say, okay, well, that's great. Listen, you know, my mom is about 72. She's from a different culture. She's very conservative, and that's what the culture is. Can you maybe wear something different? What do you mean? Well, you know, just maybe you can wear pants and a long sleeve shirt and maybe a bag over your head or whatever. No, are you telling me this is how I am? You know this. And the conflict begins. So now we have two different relationships. It's one, but it becomes two because of circumstances. I like this girl because she's free. I also love my mom and I know how my mom is. And I don't want her to harass me on a daily basis. Did you get rid of her yet? What's wrong with you? Have you no shame? Knock some sense into that woman, okay? Now, what happens is the sort of expectation I have all of a sudden has changed. Now, imagine I value my time and I know how I want to be harassed and I know exactly the nature of the ways I want to be harassed. I want to be harassed by my mom when she calls and says, did you listen to Ali Shariati when he talked about justice? I sent you the goddamn video. Did you listen to it yet? That's a good harassment. So if I'm single, if I go out, I look at someone, they're dressed, showing a lot of skin, I say, well, you know, that's good for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month. But taking it to my parents, marrying her in this culture, which is extremely sexualized, if she happens to be the mother of my kids, God forbid if I have a daughter, how's she going to dress? Am I like going to follow her every time she has a date? So when you say expectations from people, how did you meet these people? I'll tell you one last story and then we'll go home. I had a student who was married for, I think, 15, 16 years, 3 kids. She sits in the class and she likes the class and she comes to me one day and she says, I talked to my husband about this stuff and he's an idiot. He doesn't get it. I think I want to leave him. So what the hell? You didn't marry him for these ideas. He didn't know you with these ideas. He known you because of the way you were. It's unfair for you to all of a sudden go home and bombard him, harass him with the way you think now. You know? And that's one of the things that you need to understand. As you move through life, if you have made any commitments, as you grow and evolve and change, it would be profoundly unjust and unfair to impose your companions with your new image of self. It won't work. You can't change them. Expect nothing from anybody. Listen, I may be wrong about this whole thing. I probably am. So, Claire? Go ahead.
I was thinking about it.
Go ahead.
I don't have an answer.
It's okay, just go ahead.
Okay. When you talk about as you move and you grow, and you can't impose any of your. Are you saying that you can't impose any of your growth and new things and your new ideas that you integrate into your life with people that you've already known in different contexts of your life, and because it will. So you can't impose these things because it's unjust. Why?
Friendships, at least the way people see it, is like two people standing on the same platform. It's give and take. That one person is not dominating the other. It's not true. You and I can be friends. You and I can have a give and take relationship. I give and you take. If I give and you don't take, I don't want to hang out with you. Does that mean that I think I have power over you? Absolutely. Does that think that I think that my ways are better than yours? Yes. Now, you may call me egocentric, you may call me all sorts of nasty names. That may be fine. That's fine. Okay? I have really, really good friends. I just don't talk to them. There is no need. I mean, these are people I've hung out for the past 40 years. We played music together. If I get the news that he died, okay, he died, fine. But when we sit together now, we don't talk. I mean, our conversation ended 30 years ago. There is nothing to talk about. I don't need to prove anything to him. He doesn't need to prove anything to me. He knows where he stands. I know where I stand. He knows his task in life, and I know my own. And we have some commonalities, and that's enough. When you talk about friends, what exactly are you friends with them for? Because friendship means you have to spend time. And why the hell would you want to give your time to anyone? For what?
Why would you want to give your time?
Well, giving away your time is like giving to someone your body. I mean, do you just casually just lay with people? I mean, you could. There's nothing wrong with that. There is a good amount of pleasure that comes with it. You know, gossip is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. But once you say, well, this is my body, and I am beginning to kind of appreciate it more and realize that when I place it in certain physical spaces, it creates a specific set of emotions. Some I like, some I don't like. And I don't want to place my body in the hands or in the cradle of a space that leaves me with negative, distasteful emotions. I don't want the agitation, the frustration. I don't want to carry the stupid burden. And all of a sudden you say, okay, I like sex, but I want to have sex with Jack and Jim or Jill. Not 50 people out there. And that's the way time is. You want to have your time laid with who? For what? Now, one of the things I should clarify is when you're young, you just got to waste things. That's the way you understand things. You know, you got to go out there, you got to get dirty, you got to make a mess of everything. Hopefully you'll realize your mistakes and learn a few things from them, and then you'll kind of revise your position in life and get better. You know. So for me to say the things that I've said in the past, like many, many weeks, is completely wrong. Go out there, make a mess of everything, but have the ability to process things and overcome them. The emotions that they create inside you.
The emotions that they create inside of you, how do you process them? Is it the emotions themselves? That's why.
I have a friend who just doesn't get along with her mother. She's about 50, the mother is about 70, and every time they gather, 50 years of history comes up. Well, Jesus Christ, at the age of 50, you should know better. Just don't go to your mom anymore. And if you want to go to your mom for a visit and say hello, make sure you're healthy enough that just in case she throws you garbage, like Superman, you just deflect them. And then you can go home. But if you want to go to your mom's saying things, you're going to go home and put yourself in bed and be depressed for 5 days, what the hell is wrong with you? And why the hell would you want to put yourself in harm's way? But that takes a long time, you know. And you have to get over this false sense of compassion, empathy, kindness. I love my mom. Forget all that stuff. The first person you need to love is just yourself. And you need to love the right parts of yourself. I had a student this last summer class says, oh, self-love. Really? What part of yourself should you love in this shitty society? I'm getting angry again. So listen. Lewis? Yeah, it was fun. Not really, but anyway. So listen, have a good day. Take care of yourself. I'll see you Monday. Oh.